Hello and welcome, conspiracy theorists of truth and championships of the footnote, to another episode of Riz Talks. I'm your host, Riz, and I'm excited you're here. We're about to dive deep into the questions that keep you up at night, or at least make you side eye the headlines over your next morning coffee. Our motto here is to think again, to take what we think we know, give it a good shake, and see what loose facts and hidden histories fall out of its pockets. So it's time to pause, to reflect, and to ask, why does history feel like a record stuck on a loop of crisis? Why do the same patterns of exploitation, war, and injustice replay with different actors, but always the same tragic ending for the powerless? Today, we're not just scratching the surface, we're excavating the rotten foundations. We're asking, is the entire structure rigged? Today's episode is titled The Constant Crisis. We produce enough food to feed 10 billion people. There are 8 billion of us, yet famine exists. We can have peace, but the conflicts are created to divide and conquer. We have the technology to solve climate change, yet we're still arguing about it. It's all about money and power. As the philosopher John Locke once said, where there is no property, there is no injustice. A comforting thought until you realize the game is all about who gets to define property and then hoard it. Selling land and owning property is a man made product of the ages. According to Oxfam, the world's 10 richest men doubled their fortunes during the first 2 years of a pandemic that pushed over 160 million more people into poverty. Famine is a weapon of war in multiple regions. Genocide is not a historical relic, but a contemporary headline today. In 1820, the ratio of the average income of the world's top 20% to the bottom 20% was about 5 to 1. By 1991, it was 86 to 1. Guess what it is now? Following the Industrial Revolution, this ratio widened significantly and has continued unabated thanks to our crooked politicians who are controlled by the rich lobbyists, the puppet masters. Lobbying is now legalized bribery. The poorest 50% of the global population owns only 2% of the total wealth. The global military expenditure is nearly a record $3 trillion. For context, the United Nations estimates it would cost about $40 billion a year to end world hunger by 2030. That's less than 1.5% of what we spend on weapons. The nearly 3,000 billionaires in the world could give only 10% today to end poverty tomorrow. The freedoms we fought for in the 60s and 70s and took for granted have been usurped by our leaders in the name of security and emergencies and urgencies and crises. The old trick of creating so much chaos and confusion that people willingly give up their rights temporarily for the emergency declared are never returned. Nobody has any privacy anymore. Why? Let's explore how it started. From divine right to divine stock options. Once power was absolute, visible, and wore a crown. The landed monarchs and their court cronies owned the land, the armies, and the laws. The common people were subjects, not citizens. Their labor and lives were extractable resources for the crown's wars and palaces. Now they are replaced by suits, these kings. The billionaire class are our new landed gentry. Their fiefdoms are data streams, supply chains, and mineral rights. Their cronies are lobbyists and politicians. So, back 15, the Magna Carta. Annoyed English barons forced King John, to sign a document saying, you can't just throw us in jail because you're having a bad day, mate. It was the world's first review of a monarch. He got 1 star. The East India Company started in 1600 wasn't just a company. It was a corporate state hybrid with its own private army that conquered India. Think of it as Amazon if Amazon had seized control of Ohio and started collecting taxes. They pioneered the modern corporate lobby. Their agents, called nabobs, would return to England and literally buy seats in the parliament and change the laws. The crown jewels changed hands, but the playbook hasn't. The 20th century just gave it a snazzier name, the military industrial complex. The 21st century update to that name is military technology industrial complex. Not tech companies in California influence where war in Europe can be waged, can blackmail countries depending on satellite communications and internet in Africa and other places. President Eisenhower warned us in 1961 with the severity of a disappointed grandfather. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. He was right. It just got better at PR. Now it sponsors think tanks and headlines on news networks it partly owns. The colonial mindset and imperialism exist today in parts of the world. Very few, if any, are worthy of respect. Since the 80s, the Reagan Thatcher economics have squeezed the middle class. The belief being when the rich get richer, they expand businesses, offering more jobs and boosting the economy. That idea has not played out well for the masses. The puppet master's toolbox includes lobbies and loopholes. So, how does the modern system work? The billionaires, big corporations, global banks, multinationals, asset managers control the world by passing laws or bypassing laws. Are there groups of people or certain governments behind them? Probably. They legalize bribery of lobbying, which is hiring a DC firm to ensure US foreign policy or a trade deal bends in their favor. And this is replicated in other countries. They keep funding these politicians' re-elections with the money the government or subsidies provide, and the cycle goes on in perpetuity. It's not called corruption, it's called advocacy. Remember the golden rule: who has the gold makes the rules. Lobbying isn't evil whispering in dark halls. It's a vibrant, legalized industry. In 2023, for every single member of Congress, there were roughly 20 lobbyists paid to influence them. As the satirist Mencken once observed, when somebody says it's not about the money, it's about the money. The playbook is the same: consolidate staggering wealth, translate it into political influence to rewrite the rules in your favor, and externalize the cost, the pollution, the poverty, the instability onto the public and the developing world. After tax havens, now space is the final frontier for tax evasions and warfare. Space. We were promised moon bases and Martian colonies. What did we get? Satellite constellations that can pinpoint a single chicken in a farmyard, and billionaires using rocket launches as giant tax deductions. The new space race isn't for science, it's for spectrum dominance and spycraft. Jamming a satellite can collapse a nation's banking or logistics. We weaponize the sky with silent electronic warfare, hypersonic missiles, and more. The chaos is continuously created to declare emergencies and take power from the people. Whether geopolitical wars, economic concerns, environmental issues, financial collapses, health emergencies, climate disaster, and the list goes on. People lose their wealth, privacy, and other liberties and rights through surveillance deemed essential by executive authority, justifying these things under the name of urgent requirements. All this causes fatigue. This ongoing crisis after crisis, chaos is created, and that works easy to govern the people. It's all being manipulated. There is a pattern of creating crises and controlling the media to frame the one-sided view. This machinery ensures the constant crisis is exported. The developing world isn't unstable, it's the arena. It's where proxy wars are fought with yesterday's weapons, sold by today's lobbyists, where resources are extracted, where the economic shock therapy prescribed by wealthy nations creates inequality by design. The developing world is not unlucky, it is exploited. The Middle East and rich Africa was and is purposely being broken to create a permanent state of weak, divided countries dependent on external patrons. Asia and South America cannot be controlled as much closed doors anymore. So, what can we actually do? History offers a few clues. Unionize everything, not just workplaces. tenant unions, consumer unions, digital citizen unions bargain collectively, organize transnationally. A worker at a factory in Bangladesh and a consumer in Berlin are connected by the same supply chain. Global solidarity is no longer a lofty ideal, but a practical necessity. Time to renegotiate the terms of service agreements. 2. Follow the money, then block it. Support movements for radical financial transparency. Shine a light on the shell companies and dark money that lets wealth hide like a vampire from sunlight. As the leaked Panama Papers proved, secrecy is the lifeblood of this system. Stop lobbying and political donations. 3. Hack the narrative. Use satire, memes, and art. When the powerful get too grandiose, ridicule is a potent weapon. It deflates their gravity. They want to be feared or revered. Never let them be either. Make them a meme. Reclaim technology. Use the very platforms that are designed to addict and divide us to educate, mobilize, and create parallel systems. From cooperative economics to open source investigative journalism. The internet was a common, then it got fenced. Data is a common, then it got hoarded. 5. Revive the social contract. Demand tax justice. Insist that obscene private wealth be met with a duty to the public good. Just as feudal lords were, in theory, obligated to protect their serfs. The future battle is over what we own together, from open source software to public broadband. Fight for digital and physical public space, privacy and universal human rights, equity and justice for all. Do not let a few companies sponsored and supported by certain countries control us through the fake and social media. The future isn't a prediction, it's a wrestling match. In one corner, techno-feudalism 2.0, with billionaires as de facto kings of digital fiefs. In the other, the messy, glorious possibility of a global democracy built on genuine justice. Let's wrap this up. The constant crisis in a managed is it's profitable for a tiny few. The puppet masters now aren't in a smoke-filled room. They're sitting in governments on quarterly earnings calls and at Davos, speaking a language of shareholder value and disruption that masks an ancient practice, extraction. We are not powerless, we are disconnected. The monarchs fell when the story of their divine right stopped being believed. Our task is to stop believing the story of the infallible market, the benevolent billionaires, and the inevitable crises that keep coming. So here is my challenge, your rhetorical question to carry with you. They have the money, the media, the lobbyists, and the satellites. We have the numbers, the creativity, and the fact that we grow the food, teach the children, build the world, and make the world go round. We are the engine of the car, without which they can just sit in the car, but they're not going anywhere. The question is, when do we finally realize that makes us the more powerful side of the equation? It's time to recognize the true heroes amongst us, the hard-working, honest tax-paying doctors, firefighters, police, teachers, all the others that are making an honest living and make each other's lives better, down to the gardeners and sanitation workers, not the tax-avoiding cheats who live in huge mansions or politicians funded by them. Especially, there are no illegals living on stolen lands. Thank you for lending your ears and your brilliant questioning minds to this episode of Risk Talks. It leaves us with our core beating question. Are we living in a way that will leave this world better than we found it? The current scoreboard says no. But the game isn't over. It's just getting interesting. It's now time to act. Start local. Get curious about who funds your local elections. China Cooperative. Share this podcast. Think again. Challenge ideas. Join the conversation. Be a glorious, ungovernable pain in the neck to anyone who profits from despair. This is Risk Talks. Be curious, be kind, and come back for more.